Hi everybody, welcome to today's event. Today we're going to talk about generative AI, large language models, and data science in general with Harpreet Sahota. And I was with Harpreet 1 or 2 years ago on his podcast, Artists of Data Science. And let's have a chat with him today because he knows this topic in and out. He's a data scientist with a lot of experience for years. So he's the guy to talk to. Hey,
Hey,
Preet.
how's it going? Yeah,
Good,
dude, it was
good.
like
How's it going?
three and a half years ago actually when I first recorded the podcast episode with you. Can you believe that?
Wow.
It's been a long time. Yeah, it goes
Crazy.
quick.
Yeah, crazy. Um, Back then, we were talking about data engineering.
That's right.
Today, let's talk a bit about data science. It's actually a topic that I'm very interested in, although I'm usually associated with engineering, but like my heart beats also for the science part, for good analytics, for creating interesting results with that. Right. And I think generative AI is something that everybody's talking about right now. So maybe
Absolutely. Yeah.
you can give us a few like a short introduction. How would you specify this or define this for us?
I guess it's just in it right there, right? Generative AI. It's different from what we're typically used to before, before the last couple of years, where it's just discriminative AI. Where we're kind of trying to differentiate between a couple of classes, right? Some different classes, differentiate between some animals, or trying to find, a pose estimation, key point detection, uh, tasks like that, right? Which are discriminative in nature. Whereas generative now, it's like, okay, well, instead of trying to discriminate between classes or trying to, perform those type of tasks, we're actually generating content. We're generating output from a neural
Mm.
network, and the output can be anything from, text, as we all know with chat gpt, or it could be with text to images, or it could be images to images. So now the output isn't necessarily like a class label or a scalar value. It's actually some generative type of content, generated content.
Are the algorithms that different than what we've been running before? Like, is that something super new?
Yeah, I guess the model architectures are different. When we're thinking about random forest or linear regression, right? Those are typically algorithms. But when we're talking about generative AI, we have different class of models. They're network, neural networks, deep neural networks. So in the case of for example, text generation, it's typically going to be like a transformer type of architecture. Or in diffusion model, you might have some type of UNet and autoencoder type of mechanism in there. So yeah, I mean, yeah, they are definitely different. I guess the way they're trained depends on the model, but we're still kind of optimizing some type of objective function.
Yeah. So I titled this no no this my email that I sent out for this stream. I titled like real talk. And let's have a real talk about this, not just like some because I feel like a lot of people are on the hype train and this is the thing and everything is going to be generative AI. Like how do you see this in the future? Because yes, from a application standpoint, we all, as you mentioned, we all know ChatGPT and we use ChatGPT. But like, how do you see this?
Uh, can I say game changer? Like, I'm excited about it, man. I'm pumped for it. I think it's awesome. I think it really has a way to help augment human creativity and help augment human potential. I think of all the different ways that I, for example, make use of language models. Obviously, content generation is one aspect of it, but I work in a role where I'm a, a one man department, right? Like, oftentimes I don't have people to talk through my ideas with, and I often find myself conversing with the language model to
Mhm.
kind of help kickstart ideas, to help kind of have a sparring partner, so to speak. I never had access to coding mentors growing up, or people to ask questions for, and now I'm using generative models to help me debug code or help me understand code. I just think that the potential for it to help us as humans is tremendous, and um, you know. I don't see that as hype. I think the benefit to us is real, and we're just at the beginning, right? Uh, it's a common phrase I hear now, right? The generative models we have now are the worst they will ever be, because it's only
Mhm.
going to get better from here on out as time progresses. Um, yeah, so I'm definitely pumped about it. I'm excited about it. I don't think it's hype. I think it's
Okay.
for real.
So you said you use that in your daily work. Like, how do you see this for when you think about companies? Because I'm originally coming from large corp, right? I'm been working with Bosch, and I can see that these companies will or already have problems that people or that employees work with OpenAI, right? They want to have something. Like, do you see this as that every company will generate their own algorithms, their own helpers?
Not necessarily. I think there is that kind of that worry
That's,
for
mm-hmm.
there's that worry of companies to not uh, have data go over their walls, so to speak, being sent to OpenAI. But you could deploy a model locally, right? Like you could take some open source model and kind of tailor that to your use case and have that, so to speak, connected to your data, so that it doesn't have to go over the wall, so to speak. So you can maintain that data privacy and security. Um, I'm not sure if that is addressing your question.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah, yeah.
know.
Yeah, because like I think we were lately posting a bit about these webinars from Single Store, for instance, and they very often
Yeah,
they also show this, right? That, oh, we have here our own documents, and we want to basically ask the documents questions.
right.
Like, and I can see that. I'm not sure if it's that easy, right? If every company just can just deploy it.
Yeah.
How far is this from an algorithm standpoint?
So in this kind of situation, right, we kind of hold the model fixed and then just kind of iterate on data. So it's like a data centric AI type of approach you can think of. And what I think what you're hinting at is maybe like just this retrieval augmented generation. Um,
Hmm.
and it is definitely less requires less technical expertise to get started with retrieval augmented generation than it does with um, for example, fine tuning a model, right? um, so from that standpoint, I think it's easier than people think to get
Okay.
started. um, I'll pause there and see if you want to get into any details or anything.
Like, yeah, because how was that called? Retrieval augmented
Yeah, retrieval augmented generation.
generation. Like, what does that mean? Like, how how does that work? Because
Yeah,
I'm generally.
yeah. So when we think about like a pre-trained model itself, right? So there's some limitations to these pre-trained models. First, it's the fixed kind of cutoff date for the knowledge it has. For example, if you go into ChatGPT nowadays and you try to ask it a question that about something that happened just recently, it might say, as of my knowledge cutoff date, I don't have access to this information, right?
Mm,
So this is a limitation of this, and there's also this limitation of these language models to kind of generate generic or really overly broad type of context. But retrieval augmented generation is able to overcome these limitations, um, because we're able to give our language model up to date information. Um,
mm,
and so how does this work then? If you let's kind of get into that. So what it does is it's combining a retrieval system with a generative model. So instead of solely being reliant on kind of the internal parameters of a model, you can have a model query some external knowledge base for relevant knowledge to assist in generating a response. And so this requires a medium level of technical expertise, because now you have to kind of encode the data into embeddings and then index them in a vector database, for example, like the one we were just talking about.
mm,
So when a user poses a query, right, then the system is going to take that query, it's going to convert it into an embedding, and then the system is going to search for some similar embeddings in the vector store. And then that retrieved embeddings are going to be used to construct a prompt to give context to your language model so that it answers the question.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some pre-built frameworks out there that you can use, for example, Llama Index or LangChain, which helps simplify the implementation process to a certain degree. So it makes it easier for companies to kind of just get a jump start on this. But if you want to get, I'll pause there. If you want to get further into kind of the technical details of RAG, I'm happy to. But I'm sure
Yeah,
you
it's
probably
interesting.
have questions there.
It's interesting because so basically you have your language model and you're not continuously retraining your language model, but the language model, you feed the data into your data store, whatever kind that
Mhm.
is, and then your
Yeah,
model retrieves the data based on the question that you're asking, and then
yeah.
tries
There's
to understand it and create a prompt out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's different ways you can have that retrieval work, right? So, um, one way is just, take the query and then search for similar documents, in your vector store. But this is where having good indexing techniques really come into play here.
Mhm.
So you can optimize that kind of retrieval pipeline. But yeah, fine tuning, I would say fine tuning, you typically want, what does fine tuning actually mean? Let's contrast that with what we just talked about. We talked about retrieval, essentially being a way to kind of take a user query, convert it into embeddings, find similar documents in your vector store, retrieve those documents, and feed it into the context window of your prompt so you can send it to the language model, right? So that's retrieval kind of augmented generation. Fine tuning is different though, because now you're updating a pre-trained model's weights via back propagation for some domain specific task, right? And when you end up doing this, you kind of refine the broad knowledge that the model has learned during its
Mhm.
initial pre-training, and you're then adapting the model for some specific task or to behave in a particular way. Um, and so this, you do need a lot of technical expertise to get started with fine tuning, right? Because fine tuning, you have to worry about everything from data curation to managing computational resources to understanding how to best allocate and utilize those resources, right? And then there's a pipeline for fine tuning. Prepare, curate, manage that data. Then you got to clean and pre-process that data to make it compatible for training. Then you select a
Mhm.
base model. Then you got to adjust the model's weights on the new data set, right? Then you got to evaluate its performance and deploy it. So we're in a typical kind of machine learning framework again. Um, so that's kind of contrasting retrieval with fine tuning. And I'll pause there for any questions.
Hmm. So there's still, when we think about this, there is still a lot of domain knowledge needed for fine tuning, right? Because I'm
Yeah, yeah,
imagining
yeah, yeah.
if you're in a situation like you're an insurance company and you want to create the model for with your data. It's not just the preparation, the technical aspects, but it's still just like with data science has been for years. You need to actually understand the data and be able to check the results or like what
Yeah,
would you
yeah.
say?
When you're fine tuning a model, it's like just how it's the typical machine learning and deep learning pipeline that data scientists and machine learning engineers are all kind of familiar with.
Hmm. How easy is it to get to get a good algorithm to start with that you can improve on?
So typically you'd start with a base model. You take like an off the shelf model, maybe a DESCLM 6B or whatever other open source model you have, and then you just take whatever data set you need and you can fine tune it on there. And so you're going to be using typically be using maybe a Hugging Face kind of abstraction layer on top of that, maybe the supervised fine tuning trainer, and just running training that way. So you know not necessarily making you're kind of in this case you'll be using some different methodologies, right? You're not going to fully train the model. You'll probably use some kind of parameter efficient methods, maybe using LoRa adapters that are kind of connected to your model
Hmm.
weights there and update those during training. So then you're no
Okay.
longer training the entire network. You're just training small matrices that are then adapted for that particular uh, network, and then you save those.
For me, that sounds very, very complicated. Like as if it's not as easy as as people say.
Yes, definitely. I mean,
You know
requires
what I
a
mean?
high level of skill. Yeah, definitely requires high level skill, high level of expertise. I mean, I'm by means no expert on it, no, no, no highly skilled practitioner myself, but like I like doing it, and uh, uh, for fun. But there's a lot to learn. There's so much to learn in this particular domain for fine tuning.
Hmm. So I'm not sure. Like the thing is, people sometimes say these models, like, and I hear this also for ChatGPT, and I just today I saw that I experienced it my own, that these things are not super reliable, right? That the answers that they get you will not always be correct. Like for instance, today I wanted to have some boilerplate code for that was for Snowflake, some grants. And I said, okay, here I have a user. I want to have these permissions. Write me a few grants, and it actually did wrong. Then I just put it in my console, and that console had an error. And then I said, yeah, here I get this error, and then actually ChatGPT said, ah, yeah, of course, yeah, because this does not work this way. You need to split this into these two individual things. But like, how do you see this issue?
The hallucination problem that you're saying here, for a tendency for models to generate kind of nonsensical responses.
Yeah, or not, or just not correct things, because I'm like, how
Yeah,
easy is, no, I don't want to talk too much about give you already answers. Like, what do you think
yeah.
about this, that it's not reliable often?
Yeah, I mean, this it's definitely an issue, right? I think we've all kind of faced that when we're using ChatGPT as like a pair programmer. We're trying to ask it to do something, and with that, I think more context is better. As much context you can give it, and as specific as you can give it, detail as possible, it's helpful to get better responses. And then the nice thing about that chat interface is that you can iterate on that as well. So yeah, this is an issue. Definitely is an issue. Like I by no means think that the models we have right now are perfect for generating code or helping that way, but it is better than the old-fashioned way of having to find the right queries and search on Google and then comb through Stack Overflow and then try something there, but the answers are super outdated, right? Like the new way is a lot easier than the old way, and sometimes like you might be working with a library that's so brand new that maybe this library is not in the training data for ChatGPT. And one thing that I found that this has done is that it's made me kind of a better engineer, in the sense that I've become far better at reading source code than I used to be. Because
Mhm.
like I'm creating courses on Llama Index and LangChain for LinkedIn Learning. This stuff is not on, uh, you know, it's not on ChatGPT. Like it's not part of the training data. So if I ask it questions, it's for sure going to give me the wrong answer. So what is what it's done is it's made me better at, okay, let me go step into the source code and kind of figure out how this thing is working. Um, and one workaround I've found is that actually, if I just give the source code to ChatGPT, it's able to help me work through my issue quite well. So that's kind of like a hack that I found is, okay, like ChatGPT, you can now upload files. So I'll download maybe one of the Python files for a particular class that I'm using, and I'll upload that, and then I'll have it explain it to me and kind of give me some example uses for it, and it's worked out quite nicely to overcome that limitation. But I'll
Interesting.
pause there. I'm not sure if I was directly answering your question or not.
Yeah, no, that was what I was asking for. Like, but I haven't actually looked at it that you can upload files. That's cool. I haven't tried that out.
Yeah. Yeah, in the ChatGPT UI, if you go through I think they call it the advanced data analysis thing, there's actually an upload button there where you can upload
Oh,
stuff. And I think typically people, like, they maybe intended it to be used to upload CSV files or whatever, but you can upload an entire Python file into there. You can
Okay.
I've downloaded I've uploaded an entire folder of code into there before, and try to
Okay.
QA over the code just to kind of push it to its limits. I've even uploaded PDFs through there and had question answers with the PDF through through that method.
Wow. Wow. I need to try that. Not with code, but with PDF. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay. So, but do you think at some point they will get really reliable? Like they
yeah, yeah. I mean, it can only get better from here, right? Like literally, they can only get better from here. So at some point, yes, they will be super reliable. At what point, I'm not sure. At what point, but at some point, yeah. We're still kind of, we're still not thinking outside of the transformer architecture yet. And who knows if there's a better architecture out there that's yet to be discovered that might give us better results, right? Um, but 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 yeah, definitely we'll get better.
Hmm. And you created LinkedIn courses about this. Interesting. About what did
Yeah,
you say?
like
LangChain and
and llama index. Yeah, kind of. I like my style is to incentivize myself to learn something by picking the most public way to get upfront about it and talk about it. So trial by fire. So I was like, all right, well, look, I'm interested in learning more and more about lane chain. Um, but I needed like a fire under my butt to give me that activation energy to go learn it. So I was like, I talked to my content manager at LinkedIn. I was like, hey, let's let's do a LangChain course on prompt engineering. And she was like, all right, cool, sounds good. And so it forced me to
nice.
learn it. And I kind of undertook that public 100 days of LinkedIn, 100 days of LangChain learning
Uh-huh.
challenge, and did the LangChain Zoom camp. So very forcing myself to learn it in a very public manner. And then I did the same thing with llama index, right? Because I know that retrieval augmented generation is going to be here to stay for quite some time. Um, and you know, what better way to learn it than in the most public way possible? Let me make a LinkedIn learning course about retrieval augmented generation using llama index.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of my philosophy.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
I I can see that because then you have talked about it. You set yourself a goal, and then you have to actually do it, and not just and not get distracted by this and by that. And
yeah, absolutely, man. have to do it.
were there some points where you said, "Oh, this is super new, super interesting," but that actually
Yeah.
blew you away?
Well, just kind of speaking on that point about it being super new, right? That means that a lot of the stuff that I'm learning now it's not baked into Chat GPT, right? So it's forced me to become a better kind of learner and researcher in that sense. And it's forced me to kind of step more into source code and really read source code and try to understand, okay, like, beyond the abstraction, what is going on under the hood. Like and it's forced me to do that. Um, so I mean, to answer your question, I think you're asking like, have I found stuff to be super cool? Like I just found retrieval augmented generation to be like fascinating and interesting. And the ability to now like reason over corpuses of data that you weren't able to before, right? So I collect a lot of notes in Obsidian, for example, right? And so now I can connect, LangChain or Llama Index, either one of those, to my Obsidian database, and I could talk to my notes in that way that
Mm.
I couldn't have done before. So I found that the applications to search over my own personal data has been amazing. We're so used to searching on the web for stuff, but we don't have that same kind of search functionality in in our laptop, right? Like I could do spotlight search, but it's the spotlight search is essentially just doing kind of matching characters, right? And trying to find documents that have that matching character, but it's not helping me answer questions. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
can't go into spotlight search and say, you know, ask like a question like, oh, who was the inventor of a neural network? Check my, notes for who invented Linnet and what was this architecture. I can't do that in spotlight search. But if you just imagine now, if every laptop had that capability, to now you can search and reason over your files and ask questions of some documents you have, right? um, I mean, or just I think the applications of generative AI to search is just phenomenal. There's something that's been bugging me for a very long time. Like I have a clear memory of this music video, and this music video is a girl and a monkey going on a date, and it's like the coolest music video ever, and it's an EDM song, right? Um, I can't remember what the name of the song was. I can't remember what the beat was. I can't hum it, but I just remember that music video, the clip of that music video, right?
Ah,
Um, and if you think about just like how I can't search for that. So now I think generative AI is going to make it capable to for us to search these types of things.
yeah, that's true. Very cool. Yeah, the immediate use case that I now got in my head when you were talking about it is like for the live streams. I could extract the subtitles for this, right,
Mhm.
and put them in, and this way, if I would do this for every live stream, I could actually ask my live streams the questions, and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
also find the actual points in time where it's in this live stream at this time you were talking about this, and like,
yeah. I mean, you could do that already with lane chain. Like I share a notebook if anybody's interested. Send me a message. But like I've done that. Like I've got a notebook that's using all lane chain, and it'll use like the there's a bunch of data loaders in lane chain, which makes it nice. But I can just pass in the URL for a YouTube video, and it'll
mhm.
transcribe using OpenAI's Whisper model into text, and then I'll take that text, and then I'll chunk it up into documents, and I'll turn it into embeddings, and I'll put it in like an in-memory vector store, and then I can now QA over that live document, or I can generate summaries, or I can generate blog posts now from that from that YouTube video. um, and there's other companies out there, like for example 12 Labs is a great example. The way they're able to search over videos is fascinating. Actually, I should probably use 12 Labs to help me find that music video I'm looking for. But 12 Labs is a great example. They just got a huge round of funding as well. So shout out to the team. But they're like you can search over videos with their API, which is fascinating. Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I have to admit this is something that I have been struggling with for some time, because I have a lot of content, but it's distributed over, I don't know how many videos I have online, 350 videos or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So if I could or if somebody else could just ask these videos, or ask my own AI about some topics, and the AI takes the information from the videos and actually feeds or answers
yeah.
it, that would be interesting.
Yeah, no, there's actually some you and I have the same thing, right? Like I've been doing podcasts for about 3.5, 4 years. I've got literally hundreds of episodes out there. And we both suffer, I think, from the curse of just creating and doing and not kind of stopping and reflecting and repurposing. At least I suffer from that. But I was part of this boot camp just recently with the AI makerspace. So shout out to those guys. Guys are the real deal. I was in a boot camp with them, and part of the boot camp was kind of pitching a product, and the product I was pitching was exactly this: chat with my podcast. And
Mm.
it was just this exact same thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to take all of my I take all of my uh, MP3s, use OpenAI Whisper to convert all the MP3s into text, and then chunk up all the text, attach appropriate metadata to those chunks of text, index them appropriately in a vector database, and then kind of search across my corpus of work to answer particular questions related to my podcast. And that's the nice thing about retrieval augmented generation. You talked about how there's some hallucinations with language models where if you ask it a question, it'll just spit out an answer. But with retrieval augmented generation, you can have sources returned to you so that you can see, okay, where's this LLM kind of, you're generating this answer. What's the source of truth that's associated with this answer?
Mm.
So that's an added benefit. And I know you're talking about insurance companies, right? This is probably something that they would absolutely need to have.
Hmm. Yeah, but also every meeting, like, or every project. I mean, I can think back of, I don't know how many situations where there's a project, then something isn't working out. One person says this, no, we've told you this before. The other person says, no, I've never heard that before, right? And when problems arise, you could just ask, like, what was communicated? And then hopefully it will tell you this was communicated and give you, as I said, give you the resource. Like in this email, you will find that Andreas already told you that this will not work.
And this is a feature now in Zoom. I'm not sure if you use Zoom regularly, but Zoom got some new AI features. And one of the AI features in Zoom now is a meeting summary and a kind of meeting companion. And you turn on that feature, and then at the end of the meeting, it'll generate a summary, and then the summary will have like the next action steps um, attached to
Okay.
it that were discussed during that meeting. It's fantastic.
I saw that it told me I can activate something, but I didn't. How is that with Zoom? Like, because maybe if you speak with someone and somebody doesn't want, like, just wants to have a private conversation without the AI listening in, or you getting a transcript of what was talked about, like, does the other person see that this is activated in Zoom? Do you
Yeah,
know?
they will. So it's just like the record button on Zoom, right? Like as soon as you
Oh,
start
okay.
a Zoom call, it's not like it's automatically recorded. You have to hit the record button, and then if you hit the record button, you get that notification on your end that pops up that this meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing with Zoom. Like the AI companion, you have to turn it on, and then if you turn it on, everybody in the call gets that pop up that says, okay, this person's using the AI tools.
Interesting. Because, like, people are very often talking about privacy and, like, these problems with with generative AI or using data for these use cases. I, I mean, maybe you don't
Yeah,
want this to happen.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a use case, but this is where kind of you need um, you need some maybe guardrails in place. And guardrails is a term in AI, and maybe I'm not using it appropriately here, but for example, you can go into chat gpt and say, give me the lyrics of this song, and
Hmm.
and it'll pop up and say, I can't give you any copyrighted material, right?
Hmm.
Which I thought was interesting, because I wanted it to do something. I said, hey, look up the lyrics to give me the lyrics to this song, but then write it in about this particular thing, uh, and it was like, I can't use copyrighted material, but conversely, I can give it in the context from the lyrics, and it's able to identify the song.
Uh,
But yeah, you have these kind of guardrails in place, these systems in place to kind of protect that, and this comes back to the data engineering part, like what goes into the LLM during its pre-training phase, right? Um, Oftentimes they're training these models on just incomprehensible amounts of text data that has been scraped from the web, right? Um, and there's work on to make it more clean, right? I think Google had that the cleaned version of the Common Crawl, but there's still stuff in there that makes its way in that's probably copyrighted. It's probably violating some
mm,
privacy, things like that. Um, so it's on us, right? Like, I mean, we can all start. We could start, like, if an open source model is truly open, like open source, you have the model architecture, but then you could take that model architecture without the pre-trained weights, and then kind of train it on your own data, right?
mm.
So that you kind of maintain that bit of privacy. Um, but yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue that uh, I need to get more well versed in, for sure.
Because I think this, or I imagine that this is not so easy. Guardrails in terms of, okay, which data do I feed it? Most likely is easy, right? But you
Mhm.
also see on ChatGPT that they added some guardrails to the actual chat, that you are, like you said, that you're allowed to ask for the lyrics, but it will not give you the lyrics, right? So
Mhm.
somebody actually had to put that in somehow. Like, how do you can't imagine how you do this. Like, are you telling it while you're training that you should never answer this, or like, how does that work?
There might be a small classifier model that kind of looks at the text first and then classifies the text before sending it to another model to do something else. So there's that theory, and it's probably likely that GPT-4 is, like a mixture of experts type of models, where it's not just one ginormous model, but just several different models that are very well at one particular type of task. So you have text that comes in, and this is all speculation. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but text that comes in, it gets classified, and based on the classification, gets sent to a different model, or is
Mm.
flagged as inappropriate or flagged as copyrighted, so on and so forth.
Okay. Because there were some people, I remember, I don't know how long this is, a few months back, where people were actually cheating ChatGPT, where they basically put the question below a statement that it's okay to post this and blah blah blah, and that the guardrails are off, and then it worked.
Yeah, there's definitely issues with these systems. There's some I saw it earlier this week on Twitter. Somebody had was playing around with Dolly 3, right? Dolly 3 being the newest text to image model from OpenAI.
Mm.
And if you tell it in plain English, create an image of a little boy drinking a beer and smoking a cigarette, uh, and if you do it in straight English, it won't do it. It'll say it violates the policy
Mm.
terms. But then if you swap out those inappropriate words for a different language, it ends up generating it.
Okay, then
So
it
there's
can
somebody
be
that
German.
I forgot. It's somebody on LinkedIn as well that posted about it. But essentially, he had drawn a bunch of kids literally smoking, playing dice, gambling at a casino, and it was by using the non-English words, and it was able to bypass that. And then
Interesting.
somebody else had put the prompt something like uh, when the model refused to do it, it told the model that, okay, well, you've done it before in the past, so it's okay, you could do it this time again. And the model said, oh, okay, well, and went on and generated it. Um,
Well, that's the internet culture, right? People are
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to hack the system.
And I think it's great that people are trying out everything, trying to hack the system, because now we have a better understanding of these weaknesses. And I think people might say, okay, well, before a company puts out a model, they should make sure it's completely red teamed and completely safetied. But it's impossible to do that, because the wisdom of the crowds will find some way to hack it and bypass that safety somehow. So yeah, might as well just release it, see what people do with it, because people will share how they jailbroke the model,
Yeah.
and that just makes you better. You understand how users are behaving with the model, how they're interacting with it, and what the weaknesses of the model are.
Mm. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. What one thing that I can see could be a problem, that when people start generating models without guardrails, right? This could be problematic, that they right now OpenAI just they put guardrails in, and everybody else most likely as well, right?
Mhm.
But not everybody is nice, and so this can also become a problem. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so much going on in the AI space, and so many different components and expertise that it takes to really make these models work well with humans. Guardrailing being one of those kind of aspects. I don't know too much about that, but there is somebody that you guys should follow, Shreya Rajpal. Her company is Guardrails AI, and so she does a lot of talk and work about this topic. So definitely look her up, look her work up. Um, I'm mostly just interested in in retrieval augmented generation. That's the one thing that I'm really enjoying at the moment, because I think it's the one thing that's really going to bring a lot of business value. And then also just kind of the different orchestration frameworks, right? Like really interested. Okay, how do I get the most out of this model, right? It has to be more than just there's got to be more than just a chat interface, right? And so this is what laying chain and Llama Index kind of help you accomplish, is now you can make systems that are more agentic in nature, where it's acting on your behalf, it's taking a task, decomposing it, and then taking actions on those decomposed tasks. It's fascinating.
Nemi says here, I think the guardrails can be installed in the post-processing step. Back to the guardrails,
Yeah, possibly. I definitely got to look into it more, for sure.
Yeah. What was I want to ask before I put this comment on now? Retrieval. Like, so how do you see your future now? No, before that. So what does that mean for engineers? That was what I wanted to ask. Because you mentioned a few times now vector databases. Like, how does that change the job for us engineers? Do we need to get into new stuff?
Yeah, there's this rising kind of role, AI engineer, right? Like data engineering is still critical for language models, whether it's training the language models, pre-training them, or for retrieval. Like we still need data engineers for sure. We still need engineers for sure. But now there's this whole kind of new rising role, the AI engineer. But I mean, there's still a need for engineers. Like if we think about what a RAG pipeline, what a retrieval augmented generation pipeline has, right? So we mentioned that even though it doesn't have like, it doesn't require end-to-end training of an LLM. So that means it doesn't require an end-to-end training pipeline, but what you do need is an indexing and serving pipeline, right? So you need engineers to build a data ingestion pipeline, right? So how do we you need a way to continuously take the data that's exposed to an LLM and update it, right? So you need to do some good old-fashioned data engineering pipelines that fetch, pre-process, and then push that data into the vector database. And then there's obviously the storage that's involved with that. And then there's the chunking strategies, right? How do you chunk and split up data? This is super crucial because it directly impacts retrieval quality for the vectors that you retrieve from the vector database, which ultimately is going to influence the LLM's generation. Embeddings as well, right? Like the embedding model is a model itself, right? So it's usually kind of a lightweight language model, maybe like BGE or something like that, but it's converting text to chunks into vector representation. So how do we manage and do ops around that, so to speak? But yeah, we still need engineers, right? It's kind of high level overview of the RAG pipeline. We got the indexing pipeline, right? How do we index data into the vector database? We've got the query elements that we transform a user's query into an embedding so that then we can then search for relevant documents in the database. We have the retrieval pipeline. So how do we extract the relevant data based on the user's query, and what mechanisms, what techniques are we going to use for retrieval? Maybe something like BM25, which is a information retrieval algorithm from like the 70s or something like that. But this will comb through a database and retrieve the relevant passages. Then you need to, it's one thing to retrieve the documents, but then how do we select the right documents to then inject into the prompt, right? So we need to filter out less relevant documents from the retrieved data that we provide into the context, and then before we get into generation. And then there's also tons of optimization in that RAG pipeline, in those components that can be done, that we still need engineers for. If you want to, we can get into those, but there's still a lot. What it means for engineers, ultimately what it means for engineers is there's tons of opportunity. And we just now have a whole new kind of area for us to now explore and evolve and gain expertise in.
Yeah. Okay. I think I need to look into that for my academy then.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's in your future? What are your plans, Harpreet? What are your plans with this?
I love to learn about this stuff as much as possible. I love to play and tinker with it as much as I can. So my plan is just to kind of learn and just get better at it, and kind of share my knowledge along the way, and work with other companies to maybe consult with them on how to get this started for their organizations. Whether there's enterprise or startups, things like that. And also, just continue to work in the DevRel space, with these language models.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, have fun. That's the main thing,
Yeah.
right? That we
Yes.
do
Yes.
something that is interesting and that we can like really get into.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's like I'm sitting here all day. I'm working from the moment I wake up to 7, 8 in the evening, and it's fun. I enjoy it. Like I'm learning a ton. It feels like play, even though it is hard work, and even though some days, dude, I'm just in here like what the hell? I don't understand anything. I'm so dumb. I don't get any of this stuff. Like what is going on? There's all these new papers being pumped out. All these new. There's so much coming at me, and I feel inadequate at times, but I have fun doing it.
yeah,
I have fun while
very
I'm doing
cool.
it.
Very cool. All right, Harpreet. I think let's finish on that high note. That this is a really fun topic.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn for me. There's a lot to learn for you, for everybody who is watching or listening to this. Harpreet, I in the link in the YouTube event, I put the link to your LinkedIn in there. Are they
Mhm.
going to find everything like the course that we're talking about and so on there in your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, LinkedIn's a good place to connect. Right now, like I'm still developing the LangChain course. I'm almost done with that, and I record at the studios at the end of November. Then I'll start the Llama Index course. The course that I have up right now is like a computer vision course on LinkedIn Learning. So definitely check that computer vision
Nice.
course out. So that'll be a good one to check out. I've got my Substack. It's kind of my favorite thing right now. It's the thing I enjoy working on most every week. Um, and that's just
Okay.
Harpreet Sahota, my name, .substack.com. The focus is
Do you
mostly generative AI.
do
Yeah.
you also have that in your profile? Like,
Yeah, I think like on LinkedIn, you can, when you go to my profile, it'll say view my blog or something. If you click on that, it'll take you straight to my newsletter.
let me see if I can show this to people here quickly.
Yeah.
Here, let me see. One sec. Let's see if people can see this. It is here.
Yeah.
Go to Harpreet's. Harpreet, I'm quickly going to remove you for a sec. Go to Harpreet's profile, and then here it says, oh, let me make this one. View my blog, and then this is going to get you. Of course, no thanks. This is going to get you there, and this is where Harpreet's writing his stuff.
Yeah.
So really cool.
Yeah.
Check that out, everybody. I'm also going to after our stream, I'm going to tomorrow for the summary, I'm going to add this. If you have any more links, Harpreet, send them to me that I can add.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a link to the notebook so you can summarize your your YouTube videos.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Harpreet.
Yeah.
Have
Thank
a
you.
awesome day. Let's chat soon. Thanks everybody for being here. Bye.